BJ Mafia was popping. So after the Jacksonville Jaguars had hired Doug Peterson last offseason and all of the big free agent signings that the Jaguars had, spending the most money in an NFL free agency period in NFL history, last season felt like the most monumental and pivotal moment for the Jaguars offseason in their entire franchise's history. Now you fast forward to this season after the Jacksonville Jaguars just had a huge playoff run. They exceeded expectations this season. The 2023 offseason feels just as critical for the Jaguars, not only this year, but for the team moving forward as a whole, and especially now that the Jaguars have Super Bowl aspirations under Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. General Manager Trent Baalke has been putting on an absolute masterclass so far this offseason. I'm going to be talking about that in today's video, and Trent Baalke has really done a great job this season and last season when it comes to the draft, free agent signings, now restructuring contracts, the list goes on. Let's talk about that in today's video. So the first big thing that I got to talk about, and this actually just happened today as I'm recording this video, I already posted the video, but the Jaguars will be placing the franchise tag on tight end Evan Engram. It's going to be an $11.4 million franchise tag. Extremely excited for Evan Engram. If you want to hear my full thoughts in that video, I will link to it up above, because Evan Engram was a huge part of the Jaguars team's success last season, and I do think that in the long term, there is still a deal for him out there, because if you remember correctly, the Jaguars did franchise tag Cam Robinson prior to him getting his 3-year, $54 million deal last offseason, and Cam Robinson's been a big reason as to why the Jaguars have been extremely successful when he's on the field and he's healthy. I'm just extremely happy and excited for Evan Engram now that he's getting the franchise tag. And $11.4 million, that's a bargain, honestly, with the way the market is. Now getting into some other notable offseason moves that the Jaguars have done so far this season has came with some restructured contracts, and I do expect to see some cuts in these next couple of weeks once the deadline is over. But the first big one came with Foye Oluokun, the NFL's leader in tackles for 2 consecutive seasons, and in the 2 playoff games that we had combined versus the Chargers and the Chiefs, he had 27 tackles. Just a huge catalyst as to why the Jaguars were extremely successful on the defensive side of the ball. And we restructured Oluokun's contract, creating $10.36 million of that into some cap space, converting $12.92 million of Oluokun's salary into a signing bonus, which added 3 void years to his contract. Just a great restructure by the Jaguars and a great job by him. Then some other notable restructures came with wide receivers Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, including Brandon Scherff, all a part of the 2022 free agent class for the Jaguars. The Jaguars restructured those contracts, creating $32.6 million of that base salary into signing bonuses for these guys, creating $26 million of that for cap space this season. Christian Kirk was obviously a huge reason as to why the Jaguars were extremely successful this year. 84 receptions, 1,108 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He exceeded everyone's expectations. And Isaiah Zay Jones had a career-high season as well too. 82 receptions, 823 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Zay Jones had a lot of big plays for the Jaguars this season. But when it came to the restructure of these contracts, Zay Jones had $5.92 million of his salary converted to a bonus and had 3 void years to his deal. Brandon Scherff had more than $12 million of his salary pushed to a bonus with 3 void years to his deal, and his cap number dropped from $20 million this season to only $10.1 million. Great job by him. And then with Christian Kirk, his dropped from a $23 million cap hit to an $11.4 million cap hit. Just a great job by these guys, restructuring their contracts to allow some leeway and some leverage for the Jaguars front office. The Jaguars have also had some notable free agents that we've re-signed back onto the team when you're talking about backup quarterback CJ Beathard, running back JaMycal Hasty, and a big one with a 3-year, $30 million contract extension in Roy Robertson Harris. And Roy Robertson Harris was an extremely disruptive defender. Towards the latter half of the season, he was a big reason why the Jaguars front 7 was extremely successful. I think he's absolutely deserving of that money. He's just a great rotational player. He's a great veteran and a great vocalist on and off the field. If you've seen the videos of Roy Robertson Harris speaking, I think he's going to be a great mentor and continue to be a great mentor for guys like Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, specifically. Extremely happy for RRH. And an interesting stat for you guys that might have forgot, Roy Robertson Harris is the first defender to ever record 4 tackles for a loss, 2 pass breakups, and a sack in a playoff game, and only the 7th player in NFL history to ever do that. Now, I do have one more topic that I really want to drive home with this video, and it's the other unrestricted free agents of the Jaguars I would love to bring back, even with the little bit of cap space that we do have, even though there will still be some restructures and some cuts coming in these next couple of weeks that I expect. But some other notable guys is going to be Jawan Taylor, Arden Key, and Marvin Jones Jr. Those are going to be the 3 big names that you're going to talk about now that Evan Engram is back on his franchise tag and he's going to be back with the team. Jawan Taylor, to me, this is a guy I've been a huge catalyst for all offseason. Jawan Taylor allowed a 2.5% pressure rate on dropbacks this season, the third best mark among all tackles in the NFL. He had a career high season in a contract year, but I do believe that he is a franchise right tackle, and he was a huge reason as to why the Jaguars offense was extremely successful, and I do believe that you got to go ahead and try to pay him long term. I really do not want Jawan Taylor hitting the open market. Arden Key, another guy who bet on himself. He was extremely successful with the San Francisco 49ers with guys like Bosa, Eric Armstead, and that great 49ers defense. He comes to Jacksonville on a one-year deal, bet on himself. Another great vocal leader, another great rotational player, a guy who was extremely disruptive and made a lot of big plays for the Jaguars, especially in the latter half of the season. I would love to get Arden Key back, and I do think that you can get him back on a reasonable deal. I think he deserves his money. And then with Marvin Jones Jr., this is a guy who I do not believe that the Jaguars will be able to re-sign, just because at the end of the day, it is a business. You're going to have to allocate that money elsewhere. Unless Marvin Jones Jr., a guy who I absolutely love and rave, I think he's a safety blanket and a great veteran for Trevor Lawrence these last 2 seasons. I would love to have him back, but I just don't know if the money's going to be feasible. He's going to have to essentially take a veteran's minimum for him to be back on this roster if the Jaguars even want him back. But in a perfect world, I would love to have Marvin Jones Jr. back. And while I do not expect the Jaguars to be big spenders in this year's free agency class, there's going to be some notable guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that you're going to be talking about for the Jaguars to potentially eye. Guys like Byron Murphy Jr., James Bradbury, Marcus Peters, Fletcher Cox potentially, maybe a Calais Campbell reunion, Yannick Ngakoue reunion. The list goes on. There's a lot of guys out there that the Jaguars could potentially go and target in free agency. I don't really know what the market would provide, especially considering that the Jaguars don't have the best cap flexibility as of right now, but there is a lot of guys out there that the Jaguars could go out there and target this offseason. But Jaguar fans, we are just right around the corner from the draft. The combine's going on right now. We are just right around the corner from free agency and legal tampering, so I'm extremely excited for these next couple of weeks because there's going to be a lot of great content coming out. But if you guys enjoyed today's video, man, make sure you guys drop me a thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it helps me in the channel out tremendously. And if you guys are new here, consider hitting that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Jaguars content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure you guys go follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok. I'm very active and I'm on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below. But thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. Go Jags, baby. Peace.